Hello there, this is Debbie Heiser, and I am so stinking excited to share this new season 4 with you. And I can't believe that this is already the 4th season of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. And I just want to thank each of you who listen. And my hope is that the tools, the thoughts and experiences I share, as well as the work I've done to love myself, love others, and love the work I'm called to do, that also helps me lead a truly lit up life, will help you move into a more lit up life yourself. A few things to look for in this season. Super excited to share that we're going to be coming to you now every week with episodes jam-packed with information to serve you. Every other week, you'll hear from a guest who's leading a life that they love, and I'll be asking them to share their stories, how they got there, and any thoughts or advice that they can give you, our loyal listeners. We have new music too, and I'm so thrilled to introduce this song called Ride, sung and co-written by my friend, Miss Jackie Wilson. And she, along with her collaborators, Tyler Banks, David DJ Lee, and Chris Renee, are super talented and generous, as this song fits perfectly into the thought of stepping into your best life. To follow any or all of these talented folks, check out the show notes for their social handles. Thanks again for listening. Enjoy season 4 and do us a solid and leave us a rating and a comment to help us be able to share more with people across the globe. Now, let's get started with this episode.
You're the only one who really can transform your mind.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. I am really excited today to introduce you to Jennings Waterhouse. She is a dynamo and somebody that I just am so interested in talking to, because how I know Jennings, we live in the same town in Sandpoint, Idaho, and we've run across each other throughout things. And I walked in one day to, I don't know if I call it a storefront, Jennings, but like a little storefront, and she had these beautiful paintings up, and I commissioned her to do a couple of flies for my son. I bought this huge painting that I still adore of a fishing painting that's in the bottom floor of my house. And then I commissioned her to make my backdrop back here. And just looking at Jennings and knowing Jennings, how much you live life on your own terms. You're raising 2 little boys. You're doing all of these magnificent things in life. And part of what I love about it, that I think people that I worked in corporate for over 20 some odd years, and people that work in corporate, we have a work story that you have to work 8 to 5. And one of the things that I love about watching you and your husband is watching how you work when you need to work, right? Like you create your own schedule and put that together. So Jennings, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself professionally, because I feel like people do a better job of doing that themselves than me trying to do it. So introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and then let's have a conversation.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. I think I'm kind of a hard person to describe professionally, and that's probably professionally probably wouldn't be how I describe myself, just because I've always been a jack of all trades. I've been a project addict. I've always followed my passion as a yes type person. So an opportunity comes along for me and I'm like, yes, let's do it. And so that's led me down a lot of different paths. I've owned a fine dining restaurant and been the executive chef and manager of that. We had a boutique inn. We flipped houses. I had a high-end design and finishing business, a Bikram yoga studio, and I love teaching. But about 10 years ago, I found myself kind of going down a different path, which incorporated all of those creative endeavors, but really was focused more on guiding people, especially women, to become their most vibrant, healthy, full of potential selves. And I do that through a company that specializes in nutrigenomics, which means that we're activating our DNA. And so I've become a leader in that company. And now I travel a lot, helping, coaching, guiding, and educating people about how to live, a different way of life. So
Yeah. So let's talk about that. First of all, I didn't know you were an executive chef. What restaurant did you own?
We owned the Sand Creek Grill for
Oh
10
my
years.
gosh. Yeah, I totally remember that place.
Yeah.
Yummy place. I didn't realize that. Learn something new every day.
Yeah.
So tell me, like you said about 10 years ago, almost as if there was a light switch that went off, but something that happened that created an area, to quote you, your yes to opportunities, like an opportunity came about. Can you tell us a little bit about
Sure.
what happened? And because I think you bring up something really important. It's about being open to those
Yeah.
opportunities and being able to receive, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I feel like that's a really important gift to cultivate, is being able to listen to your intuition and listen to that gut feeling of when you have a yes and when you have a no. I used to say a lot more yeses when I should have said no. But about 10 years ago, my son was about a year old. We had built a house off the grid, way up farther north, up in Bonners Ferry, close to the Canadian border.
And Jennings, really quick, before you go on, for some listeners, they don't know what off-grid means. I know before I moved here, I wouldn't have known.
Sure.
That means no water, no electricity, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Completely
Keep
no
going.
water, no electricity. It was wood heat. We lived 2 miles up a gravel road that we had to plow. It was, very steep. And we had 400,000 acres of wilderness as our backyard. And so it wasn't something that we had planned, really. It was another yes project. But I lived about an hour from town. And so my business was I was commuting. I had a 1-year-old son. I had multiple businesses going. I had lots of employees between all these different businesses that we were supporting. And, I've always, I say I'm a recovering type A. So I have that workaholic tendency, which I love. I love to just grind it out and get really excited about something. But I found myself getting really frustrated because I had this vision as a mom that I was going to be creating a life where I could show my kids that there was a different way, that there was possibility, that anything that they wanted to do, we could do it. Like, we could travel the world if we wanted to. We could go to that camp if we wanted to. We could get this special training for sports if we needed to, or whatever. And already in the first year of his life, I was already exhausted. My mind was completely somewhere else 99% of the time.
Yeah.
I was worried, I was anxious. And not only that, but financially, there was all this effort being put out and things were going well. But for me personally, I wasn't creating anything for my family. And so it became a real realization of oh gosh, am I going to get 10 years down the road and realize that I put in all this work and not have anything to show for it, really? Financially speaking. And that was really scary to me. And so I had this, underlying tension, I would say, or pressure. And so when my mom actually introduced me, she usually is my partner in crime for different things. And she came and she introduced me to something. And I just had that spark, what if this is something? And that was one of the times that I listened to that and I just said yes. And it completely changed the course of our future. So that's why I'm always grateful, to be open, to be able to listen when those things come in.
Yeah. And Jennings, thank you very much for bringing that up, because a lot of times I run into women that are afraid to step forward into what I call your more life directive, your spiritual DNA, step into something different when they have small children. There's this fear that, oh, I'm not going to have any time for my family. And even women that have children that are grown and out of the house, oh, I'm not going to have any time for my husband if I start my own business, if I do my own thing. And I keep trying to explain to them that there's a certain amount of hustle, right? But you hire a team, you do those things that allow you to be in your genius, but allow you to have that flexibility of time. And so you stepped in when he was a year old, and now you have 2, right? And how old are they?
8 and 11.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I can't believe he's 11 already. Holy cow.
Yeah.
And so talk a little bit more about that. What were some of I mean, did you go through, and you may have what I say typical, for lack of a better word, but a lot of women tend to go through this whole like guilt thing, right? And they think, oh, I should be spending time with my kids when they're at work. And so then we're not as productive at work. And then at work, they're thinking, oh, I should be spending time with my kids, which then you're not as productive at work
Sure.
and you're not present with your kids. And
I know
did you
it's
have
such a
any of
tough,
that?
oh yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I had that I think being an entrepreneur before I had kids,
Yeah.
I haven't had a boss in a really long time.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was starting out maybe at a different place than some people. But I feel like most women feel like, okay, we have to have it like the entire enterprise figured out to get started. You have to have everything. And it's like, no, if you just do one, I was meeting with someone the other day and she has this amazing business that's like, she already has people lined out the door.
Yeah.
And she was worried about like, well, I don't have a website yet. And it's like, no, just see the first person first,
Right.
you don't need anything, just get going.
Yeah.
And then as you go, you figure out what's working and what's not. But I think that we think, oh, we have to do everything ourselves. We have to have it all figured out. And really, I've wasted so much time thinking that way. I wish that I had been more like, let's not be perfect. Let's just get her done. Sometimes good enough is just good enough. Start it out and not have it be this miraculous reveal. That's one of the things, like I really tend to be like, oh, I want to have this big, beautiful reveal.
Yeah, the
but
bow on the
what?
package and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but people really want to go along the journey with you, and your kids want to go along the journey with you. And my kids, I was driving this morning and we were on a Zoom, the three of us, on a business call. And it's like, they're just learning how to do things by being part of it. And so I think it's such a blessing. And then you have to have enough self-worth to say like, husband, I need an hour to sit down and concentrate. So Can you take the kids and go do something with them so that I can have some quiet time? Or I need to schedule out certain things so that I can be focused. And then the rest of the time you can set it aside.
Yeah, that's so important. And I want to go back, Jennings. One of the things that I talk a lot about is faith and negative faith. And faith to me is about having the vision, but knowing they have courses called design thinking, which is about creating as you go, right? Versus having the package and the bow. And when I think about faith is you take the first step, and then with faith that the next step will appear once you take the first step.
Yep.
And the negative belief is stepping in and then not expecting it to happen, right? Like so many times we'll go into something, but there's this little voice in the back of our head that like says, it's really not going to happen. Right. And I found myself when I know that I'm going that direction, I'll say, well, the worst case scenario, like I'm not a worst case scenario person anymore. I used to be. But the minute I hear somebody say the worst case scenario, I'm like, oh, you're in negative faith, right? Like just take the step. And so part of what I'm hearing you say too is something I talk about where it's easier to move a moving cart than it is to get started. So just get started.
Just get started. And, and the faith part is, I had really gotten to a certain point where I had lost my ability to vision or to see. I was kind of paralyzed because I had gotten stuck in a rut, right? You could only see the struggle that was right around you. And when I started to really practice that, like, what if, or what is the worst case scenario, like, so you try this one thing and you take one step or two steps or three steps forward and it turns out not to be right. You just take another one to the left or you take another one to the right. And it doesn't have to be set in stone. We think, oh, I made this one decision. So now I'm locked in for the next 5 years, And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. So even if you get started and it's not right, you pivot and do something else.
And that's the fun. That's what I see you having fun with, because that's the creativity. I always say innovation is just an adult word for creativity.
Yeah.
and being innovative. So you stepped into this about 10 years ago, and you haven't always been in a leadership role in this company. And I don't know how the company is about saying whether or not you can say what the company is, but like, talk a little bit more about how you moved from the start of what you are doing with this company to now being a leader in this company, and kind of tell us a little bit about the story that happened.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the company that I work for is called Life Vantage, and well, I don't work for them. They work for me, really.
Yeah.
But I started out just as a passionate educator, and so I was just sharing the information that I learned about. And then as you start to connect with people and start to kind of grow a team, and this is through network marketing. So you start to build a community of people that are all kind of have a little bit of the same vision. They're either using this vehicle to get healthier, or to fund their passion project, or to retire, or to have to be able to stay at home with their kids or whatever. But in that process, we all come across a lot of fears. We all come across a lot of blocks that we've built up. And so as a leader on the team, you start to begin guiding people through those, just like you are as a coach, helping them recognize, like, well, what's stopping you, and how can we move forward and create what you want to create, and release some of those old traumas, the old blocks, the things that maybe have kept you your entire life from being successful in whatever you're doing. And how do we navigate this work-life balance? How do we start to manage our time better, or, figure out, and kind of like anti-time management. Now I used to be like super time management. Now that's kind of like not, I just want to go with the flow and be the most productive because I'm in an inspired place. I used to be a real planner. So, as you start to grow and teach and guide other people, you have to come across a lot of your own blocks. You have to work through those, and then you have to be able to help other people work through those too, and be just so many personal development skills that I'm so grateful for through this vehicle. And I think anytime you own your own business, you're put in a position where you get pushed to have that development. And so to me, that's one of the most valuable parts of life, is being able to have that journey. And so going along the journey with other people at the same time, in a supportive environment is totally key.
That's fantastic. And so, Jennings, we talked a little bit about, like, when you started, what's the struggle for you today? Like, when it comes to being a mom, right, of two healthy, wonderful boys, and a wife, and all these different hats, right? Daughter, all these hats that you wear, friend. And what's a struggle for you? And part of why I asked that is then our listeners and the people that follow this community, like, it's always nice to be able to hear, because then we know we're not alone.
Oh yeah. No, we're not alone. At first I had trouble, I didn't even fathom getting to the level of success that we've had in our company, income wise or team size wise and all of that. So just getting there was I had to do a lot of work to get there. And then now it's like, once you get out of your comfort zone and you get to the next comfort zone, then you realize what it takes to go to the next one. Right. And so I am always looking for the place where I feel uncomfortable. I'm looking for the place where I'm like, ooh,
the growth
I don't know,
edge.
that sounds scary. And then I know that that's where I have to go. And so I'm like, okay, crap, I heard that, and now my stomach hurts. So that means I have to tackle that. And so
look at how you light up with that too, right? It's that growth edge, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like like going skydiving or going on a roller coaster or something. So I look for those moments, and then I start to look for ways that I can either break that boundary, by going to get another level of coaching, or I am put in some sort of experience where I'm going to be challenged that way. And And then there's the challenging part for me right now is you get to a place where you're comfortable in your surroundings, like everything's really good right now. My boys are so happy. We went to a soccer tournament this weekend. We had a blast. My husband's happy. Everybody's good. And to go to the next level, you have to disrupt that a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I may have to travel more, or I may have to do something. I'm not sure exactly at this moment what the next something is, but I have to do something.
Yeah. You come to a point where you
boundary.
have to make the choice, right?
Yeah.
Of which way to go. And that's what I'm hearing you say. So that's good to know. Thank you for sharing that, because I think we all run into that. And the fact that hearing you say that you went to a soccer tournament all weekend and had a blast. I mean, how many times I hear parents say, oh, we had to go to this and it was, la, la, la. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, enjoy it.
I've lost my voice.
Yeah. You were hollering. Well, and because it kind of makes me sad because, cherishing those moments and because they're fleeting. I mean, I'm going to have a 30-year-old this summer and I'm like, holy cow, how did that happen? Right. No more chasing the ball around in a swarm with the soccer. And so, I'm glad to hear you say that, and how much more it feels like life is richer because you've stepped in and you have gone forward with what you felt was what you needed and wanted to do. So that feels fantastic. I can see it
feel really good.
The energy.
I grew up an only child, and my mom's an only child and my dad's pretty much an only child. And so there wasn't a lot of family, big family environment. And then on top of that, being a solopreneur, right? You have that I have to do everything myself, and you put yourself in a box, maybe separated from other people. And sometimes that's really, really lonely place to be. And so one of the things that I really value now is community, and being able to co-create with people and work together and be, it's so wonderful to be in a group of people where you can support their dreams and what their dreams are. A lot of people don't share what their dreams are. And so it's so fun when you're watching somebody, and I know this, you watch them just, climb and do the next step and get closer and closer to where they want to go. And they blossom into something even more beautiful than they were before. So that's really amazing to me. And I never feel lonely anymore.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that to me, I'm hearing that's why you do what you do.
Yeah.
Right. Not just the community, but watching people transform their lives. And that is I take it as a sacred honor. And it is pretty neat to sit back and watch that happen, right? Because people are doing the work. It's not magic, and they do the work, and then it's like they change from the inside out, and it becomes visible. So
it's beautiful.
Yeah, to take your words from the inside out, right?
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. So Jennings, if someone is interested in knowing more about LifeVantage, they're interested in knowing more about you and what you do, where would they get a hold of you?
Let's see. They could find me on Instagram, probably the best.
And what's your handle there?
Jennings Waterhouse.
Okay.
Pretty easy.
Perfect.
They could call me. They could text me.
Okay.
You can put my phone number in the notes if you want, my email.
Okay.
I'm in the middle of a new website, so I don't want to give you that yet, but Instagram or Facebook is pretty awesome.
Perfect. And I tell you what, Jennings, go ahead and shoot me the website address, and I'll put it in the notes, because this won't publish until probably August or September. And so that way, then I'm assuming it'll be done by then. And folks, thank you so much for being here, Jennings. I so appreciate it. And I love having young people on that are also mothers and dealing with all these like grown-up life things that happen, and a successful entrepreneur. So thank you so very much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And with that, folks, it's a wrap. If you want to learn more about what I do and how you can work with me, please go out to www.leadyourlituplife.com and sign up for a clarity session. I would love to talk to you more. And with that, we'll see you next week. Thanks so much.
See the colors of the rainbow. Find your own kind of happy. See the colors